What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Something More Comfortable, the Black Velvet Experience. I am your host, the bow tie bully himself, Black Velvet. And I just want to say, first and foremost, Happy New Year to everybody. Toast to all the people that we have lost last year. We lost a lot of good people last year, but unfortunately, that's just the way life is. But also, for all the people that we've gained, all the children that were born last year. Because if y'all been listening, my daughter was conceived on January 1st of 2020. So last year was ugly and beautiful for me in the same token. I have a little girl. Sorry, I was taking a sip, but I had a little girl. And it's funny just because I had a friend of mine that specifically told me that this little girl was going to look just like me. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, she looks so much like me, or more importantly, she looks a lot like my daddy. So in that sometimes overwhelms me just because I lost my dad in 2000. So it's been 20 years. And so it's very, very difficult sometimes looking at her face and just seeing his face and the faces that he made back when I was a kid. And, but enough of, the sad stuff. I pray that everybody is having a peaceful, New Year. A lot of people been posting that it's December 37th, 38th or whatever of 2020. Listen, it is a new year. Now, we already knew that there was going to be some mess that spilled over from last year. It was a fact. It just was going to be. So, but I pray that everybody is taking the opportunity to truly just, day for day, appreciate what life is and what life has in store for you. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I just got off the phone with my lady, and the reality is that I'm still waiting on a start date for my job, still waiting on a move back to the DMV, or DC, Maryland, Virginia, for all you folks that don't know what DMV stands for when it comes to a location and not the Department of Motor Vehicles. But yeah, but definitely, like I said, I want to say that this is not easy. It's not, as far as waiting on somebody else. And so, but I'm going to continue to do what I do, what I'm saying, and be positive and enjoy the life that I have, because who knows when it will be taken from me. So before I get into my topic, I just want to say shout out to all the people that have been listening. Shout out to all the people that have been downloading. We are almost to 1,000 downloads, y'all. And again, I do not disrespect the small numbers for the big numbers, because before you get to, like I said, 10,000, a million or whatever, you got to get to the smaller numbers. And so the fact that I am nobody, not saying I don't feel like a nobody. I'm definitely not a nobody, but you know what I mean. When it comes to being known by people, I'm a nobody. And to have almost 1,000 downloads, y'all. The fact that y'all support me, the fact that people, back when the website was up, people were buying things, and the website will be back up, hopefully soon. Trying to get my legal together, trying to make sure I got my trademarks and all that stuff happening. But, because a lot of people have been hitting me up about this hoodie that I got on, you know what I'm saying? And custom sewn by me. So not just bought by me, or I thought up the idea, but I actually sold this in my house by hand. So I think I'm going to get these out and try to sell these or whatever, but neither here nor there. We're not here for the money talk. We're here for relationship talk. And so the conversation that I want to have, or a quick little thing, I don't want to get too deep into this, but the difference between, or I want to talk about and address expectations versus standards. And so first and foremost, I just want to talk about, I just want to give you the definitions, just baseline definitions. So the baseline definition of a standard is an idea or thing used as a measure, norm, or model in comparative evaluations. Okay. So that is what a standard is. Now, let me get to expectations. I had it pulled up, but now I got it up. Expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future, right? So most people will be like, okay, well, and I've had a lot of conversations recently at work with my lady about the difference between standards and expectations, and they do kind of sometimes bleed over into each other. But I wanted to address something specifically, and I noticed that expectations very much tend to be potentially toxic. There was a quote that I looked up, and I can't remember who the quote was by, and I believe that the name was one of those names that you can't really pronounce anyway, so I ain't even about to, set myself up for failure on that one. But basically the quote said that expectations were premeditated resentments, right? And so when it comes to talking about relationships, when we're talking about relationships and we're talking about expectations, there are a lot of things that become expectations that are just outlandish. Like recently we got this thing where it's like, in order for you to be with me, or in order for me to want to be with you, it has to be, you got to buy me a Birkin bag. A Birkin bag? Hold on. Listen, first and foremost, let's look these prices up, because I didn't even pull this up, but I just thought about it. A Birkin bag. Let's look up the now, mind you, for the people that don't know what a Birkin bag is, a Birkin bag is a purse or a piece of luggage, because they carry different styles of bags. Some are like small, like clutch purses. Some are bigger, like I don't even know what to call, tote bags almost. But yeah, let's get into the cost of these. We're gonna go to women's, because they do have a men's version of these bags, and so just saying. Cause yeah, again, they got luggage, they got, all this different stuff, but let's look at some of these prices, right? Okay. So some of these prices, one of these is definitely a clutch. I'm looking at this bag. It is definitely a clutch bag. So you have a range like $6,100 for a single purse or clutch bag, $6,150 to be exact. Oh, they even have a backpack, which is, if I tell y'all, show y'all, listen, this backpack, I'm gonna probably pop it up on the screen, but this backpack for real, $46.75, y'all. Come on now. Some of these clutches, almost $30,000 for these bags. And so that is an expectation, a very toxic one at that. But it's this idea that, and sadly, the idea nowadays is that relationships are business, transactions almost. Relationships are almost, romantic relationships specifically, are almost transactional. So the very fact that you saying, if you don't get me a Birkin bag, which at the low is like $4,600 because I've seen a couple of $4,600 on there. But $4,600 to anywhere almost six figures. Some of these, depending on how vintage they are, six figures for a bag because it has a name on it. Mind you, I've watched because again, if y'all see the hoodie, I sew. So I watch a lot of videos when it comes to how purses are made. And if you really knew what it took to make a purse, you realize none of them, no matter how high quality the leather is, none of them are worth $30,000, $40,000, $2,000. It's just a bunch of leather sewn a certain way, and there's a lot of stays that they put in them, and it is basically this like cardboard type of thing that they put in the middle, and that's what makes your purse stand up and be perky, as opposed to sitting there and sagging. That's literally what they are, but people are willing to pay that type of money. But again, I digress. But the reality of it is that yes, I in relationships, we should have standards. There are certain things that we should expect. There's that word, because they kind of do bleed over into each other, but there are certain standards that we should have. There are certain ways and behaviors that we should not just expect, but that should be the norm. Like abusive relationships or abusiveness in a relationship, I should say, should not be like, I should know you're not going to be abusive to me. And whether that be physically, emotionally, verbally, none of that stuff should be part of it. And so that is a standard. You should at least have a job. And not saying if you're in a relationship already and a person loses their job, that you should walk away from that relationship. I'm saying if I'm just meeting you for the first time and I'm trying to establish a relationship with you, you should at least have a job. You should at least have some type of income, right? Certain, and even in that, certain occupations should not be part of your standards. Like drug dealers should not be your standard. Like you shouldn't be like, okay, like that's a standard. I don't date drug dealers, right? That should be a pretty simple standard. Like that's not one of those like, man, like you being too, because at the end of the day, this man or woman, because women can be drug dealers too. There have been some major kingpins out there in the world. Shout out to Griselda Blanco and a lot of other, females in Detroit and in other states have been states and cities, but either way, have been very much kingpins. But at the end of the day, do you want to have a situation like, I don't want my door kicked in. My door has never been kicked in. I tell people all the time, I am never afraid or ashamed to say I am from the suburbs. I think I was in the hood for maybe in my lifetime, maybe for like the first year to 2 years of my life. And from there, we moved out of that environment, moved to a nicer part of town. And from then on, by the grace of God alone, trust me when I tell you that, not because of my parents, but once I got out on my own, there have definitely been situations where I didn't have necessarily all the coins I needed, but I still somehow, by, like I said, the grace of God alone, lived in the suburbs. And I always have, and for the most part, if I can help it, I always will. My family will never live in the hood. Not knocking the hood, not knocking my folks that are from the hood. My grandma lived in the hood. Matter of fact, both of my grandmas lived in the hood, but not knocking that. But just saying, I'm from the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is there are certain things that I just don't want. I've never had my door kicked in. I've never been surveyed. And if I have, they probably figured out, oh, this dude is square anyway. He ain't about nothing. He ain't selling no drugs. Because I've had some kinfolk that have been popped by the you know, the one time or the feds or 12 or whoever you call them. They've been popped by the people. And I have visited those houses. So I'm sure that even if, and they had to be surveilling these people, because where they caught them and how they caught them, there's no way that you catch somebody coming back into town from another state and you wasn't surveilling them. So clearly they saw my little Ford Focus pop up at that house here and there and must have realized, like, he's nobody. He's not important. But again, those are standards. Those are things by which, you know what, I need my man to do a certain thing. I need my woman to move a certain way. And again, some things you got to let go, because when you love somebody, you love somebody. Like let's get that clear. When you love somebody, you love them. But there are certain things that you still have to, in loving yourself, you have to say no to. But there are also, again, there are expectations that are toxic, that are detrimental to a relationship, because too often I have found in my situations, and y'all can tell me in your lives and in your situations what it is that has happened for you. But I have found that many times expectations are these things that are unspoken. Now, if I speak to you, those no longer are expectations. Those now then become standards, because I'm saying to you, hey, this is what I need from you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a holiday person. I'm not a birthday person. I am none of those things. And while I probably am not perfect in it, because again, I'm not moving in my normal habitat of dealing with holidays, but for Thanksgiving, I made sure I was where I was supposed to be. I was with my woman. I was with my family. I was with my daughter. Like, I was there. We spent time together. For Christmas, same thing. I'm not majorly into gifts, but I did everything I could to make sure that I did what not necessarily what was expected of me. Because a lot of times my woman is just, I feel like she pretends that she doesn't expect things of me, but I really think that she expects things of me, but because I know that is a standard. I know that those are things that are important. And because I know that I love her, and I know that there are certain things that she wants or needs to feel good about what's going on, I am going to do those things. So I have accepted those as standards because we talked about them. She has told me how she feels about her birthday. She's told me how she feels about the holidays and being around family and family time. So I made sure I made a point to be there for Thanksgiving, to be there for Christmas. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do New Year's, but again, definitely made sure that those things, like I said, those are standards. Those are ways that I have accepted she needs me to maneuver in order for her to feel a certain way about the relationship, to be happy, to, and again, family time isn't so, like, forget holidays. Family to me is so important. That's a standard for me. That's my standard. Family. And so to have a woman that, regardless of if it's attached to certain days, the fact that she is so into family is a beautiful thing, right? But there are so many things like expectations, like And those expectations could be sexual. Those things could be gifts or days, but it's me expecting, as it the definition states about it, being a strong belief that certain things are supposed to happen, or you're supposed to respond, that something will happen. This life is not guaranteed, and we know that. We know life ain't guaranteed. We know that there are so many things about this life that at any moment could change and could be different. And so we have to understand that, one, communication helps to make things, transparent. Because if you think about it, if you expect something, but you never tell me what you expect, right? And I just talked to my lady about this. There was a situation, not her, but someone else close to her, saying a certain thing to me in hindsight, and basically being like, whoa, well, I don't feel comfortable about a certain situation. Tell me something. And so I literally said to them, what is it that you want me to say? What is it that you want to come out of my mouth to make you feel better? Because that is an expectation. It is a thing that you have not vocalized to me, but you are expecting of me without ever giving me any idea that you expect that. And because I don't have your customs, I don't have the way that you move. I'm not from the South. You dig? I'm not from the South, so I have lived in the South, and I have picked up some of their stuff, but I'm not from the South. And the South has a completely different way of moving and thinking and operating than the North does, than the Midwest does. The Midwest is a completely different environment. Like, anybody from there knows there's a completely different environment. You dig what I'm saying? So, but ultimately, and because again, I don't want to make this episode too long. This is the first episode of the new year and the first episode of the next season. And honestly, and I didn't say that earlier, this is that next episode of the new season, but I just basically want people to understand that there are certain things that you should say, if you don't do these things, we can't move forward. And it should be respected. It should be understood. There are certain things, like if a person says, I need you to have a job. Now, mind you, obviously there are caveats to that. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in the process of doing something, that's fine. But if you are a hobosexual, a hobosexual, for people that don't know, is a person that is in a romantic relationship or seeks out romantic relationships in order to have a place to live. Nah, homie, that's a standard. I'm not dating somebody that would be, that otherwise, if they didn't date me, and so therefore they have to make the relationship work, they are going to, they would be homeless. Nah, homie, I'm good. I don't want nobody like that. Or someone that needs expensive gifts in order to feel like this relationship is worth their time. Nah, I'm good. You can keep it moving, ma'am. You can keep it moving, sir. That's not what this is. If you sleeping with me trying to get an Xbox or a PS5 or whatever, nah, we good. I'm straight. That's not, you have to set a standard, because people are a lot of times using you to achieve a level of success or achieve a level of, I'm trying to think of the word, But basically, they're trying to reach a place or a status. That's it. They're trying to reach a status. And so therefore, by being with you, they hit that status or meet that status or attain those things that they could not otherwise attain on their own. And if you weren't doing those things, they wouldn't be with you. Nah, man, that ain't it. That's not a relationship. Because at the end of the day, in order to relate to somebody, you have to be able to understanding. And that's why when I think of standards, I think of understanding. It is an understanding that, hey, there are certain things that I need in a relationship in order to feel comfortable, to feel secure in a relationship. Because man or woman, because I know a lot of times we try to, well, men need this and women need this. But at the end of the day, when what we truly want and need, if we are being honest and we are not out here trying to scam or scheme or whatever, we want to be secure and safe in our relationships. Again, our expectations. I don't expect, to truly be honest with you, I am one of those people, I don't expect anything. I appreciate everything that my woman does. And the more she does, the more I appreciate it. And the more I love her. And the more I'm like, I got to go hard for her. You know what I mean? She needs something or my daughter needs something because I'm not there. Hey, she speaks of it. Because again, sometimes it's just not on the forefront of my mind or whatever, but she speaks of something that she needs to do or that needs to happen. And what do? I'm like, you know what? I'm trying to get that to her. I'm trying to make sure she has that because again, I'm not sitting here setting her up for failure. Cause I feel like that's probably what the biggest thing that I find with expectations is a lot of times it's setting a person up for failure because when you don't speak of them, you don't acknowledge them and say, hey, this is what I need out from you. Like my woman telling me, I need this, baby. I need this. And it may be hard for me. I may fight it. I may struggle with it. But I also realize she needs certain things. And so me knowing what she needs, I'm willing to like, okay, because I love her and I know I want to keep this relationship, I'm willing to do that because again, there are certain standards, but the expectations, a lot of times they create this environment where I'm not telling you that I expect you to do that. I'm just waiting to see what you're going to do. Like the idea of, but this is a perfect example, expecting a man to pay for the first meal, right? We have gone backwards. We have grabbed certain things and it's like, this is the thing when it's beneficial. But think about all the people that you know, and come on now, if we're going to be honest, think about all the people you know. I've watched too many videos. I've known too many people. I have been in too many situations where man or woman, now mind you, all my situations have been women, but man or woman, they will finesse you because that's literally what it is. They are finessing you in order to get a free meal. Not because they really want your time. And a lot, sometimes they have attitudes the whole time that they're at the meal. They're really just finessing you to get you to pay for their food. You see what I'm saying? Like, but so that old school expectation of a man pays for a meal, it really doesn't work because there are so many other ideas and so many other sentiments that have been thrown into the game and into the mix. And I hate to call it a game because relationships should not be about playing games. But it's like they've thrown all these different things in, like, oh, I am I'm this and I'm this and I'm this. It's like this feminist idea, right? It's like a lot of times there is this, especially like I said, New Age, there is all this feminism in. It's like, don't disrespect me by opening my door. It's like, what? Like, my woman loves that I open her doors. She feels attended to. She feels a certain way. Now, mind you, that is just my standard. That is the standard by which I move. And so there isn't a woman that I have ever dated that I don't, hey, when we're walking on the street, that I don't push to the inside of the street, inside of the sidewalk. The same way I open the car doors, I open the doors. It is just the standard. And she may not have ever expected that, because again, that wasn't, but I know how it makes her feel, and I help her out of the car and all of that. And I know how it makes her feel. And because I love her and this relationship is important to me, that's the things that I do. Again, now mind you, that is already who I am, so it's not that big a deal. But even if it wasn't, even if it was new to me, the fact that I find out what she enjoys, what makes her feel a certain way, what gets a reaction out of her, and I do those things because I like the reactions that she has from those. I like when she's happy. I like when she smiles. I like when she feels appreciated, because in the end, it's not like I don't benefit from that. It's not like I don't benefit from the way that she feels. I do. And so it's that reciprocation that I'm looking for. And so it's like, but I'm not doing it. I'm not opening her door or all the other things because I want the reciprocation, but I appreciate the reciprocation. I appreciate, the way that she thinks about me and that she asks how my day was and all that stuff. I truly appreciate that. So ultimately, in all that I just said, maybe I was rambling, maybe I wasn't, I don't know. And y'all could tell me, in all that I have been saying, the reality of what I'm saying to you is this. It's that while, yes, you may have this strong belief that something will happen, if you never expound on it, you never address it, you never tell the person, can you really be resentful of them if they don't respond the way that you thought that they would? Because I'm gonna give you this example. So I was having a conversation at work, right? And in that conversation, we were actually talking about kids and how I do certain things for my daughter in the knowledge, not in the anticipation, but in the knowledge that one day I will leave this earth. One day I will not be here, right? And so obviously she has no expectation or anything of this, but I do these because why? Because I know that there will come a day that she won't have me, but I need her to still have me. I need her to still hear me and know, and in the moments where she feels insecure or unsure of herself, she has her daddy, right? All right. And we were having this conversation, and I was saying, and I gave the analogy of the pitcher and the glass, and in a situation where, like, you have lived your entire life, like say you're 20, 30 years old, you have never seen a glass, you've never seen a pitcher, right? So you have no understanding of their relationship to one another. You have no idea what those two things are. You don't have a name for them. You have never heard of them. You have never seen them. And I know that's really outlandish, but just stay with me. But so if you, and I hand them to you at 20, 30 years old, and you have never seen them, you have never heard of them, you don't know what the name of them are, you've never seen them demonstrated, the relationship of the two demonstrated to one another, it may be difficult for you to process how to pour into the other thing. Like the pitcher is meant to pour into the glass, and then the glass is meant to be drank out of. It may take you a second. It may take you a minute. Relationships are very much like that. So if you want a certain thing from a person, because I've heard this so many times in other relationships and just in watching other people, this idea of, you're too old for me to have to tell you what it is that I want. What? Think about what you're saying. You're saying that maybe this person has never seen an established relationship, a beautiful relationship, a relationship where everything is moving, and where, like I said, the whole picture where this person is pouring into the other person and the other person is pouring back into them. They've never seen that type of relationship. They don't know what that looks like. They may want it. They may not even know how to verbalize that they want that or that they need that, right? But sometimes our expectations, like I said, they can be toxic. They can be things that truly, if you don't have them, are you really saying that they do a whole bunch of other stuff, but because they didn't do this one thing, that one thing that you are expecting, that they don't love you? You see what I'm saying? You are doing too much when it comes to that, in the sense that, so they doing all this other stuff for you. They make sure that you've eaten. They make sure that you're fed. They make sure that you're emotionally okay. But because they didn't do that one thing that you were expecting them to do, they don't love you. This relationship ain't gonna work. This isn't a thing. This isn't what I want. And it's like, what? How many times? And y'all can put it in the comments. You can, whether it be my Instagram, Black Velvet HD, spelled exactly like that, Black Velvet HD, Facebook, Black Velvet HD. Drop it in the comments. Leave a comment or hit me with a DM. But tell me, how many times have you been in a situation where you took something that was so frivolous, because again, a lot of times expectations can be that they can be frivolous. They could be this one thing out of all the things. You know what I mean? And you hold that as, well, they didn't do that. And I have an expectation of that. And I haven't told them I have an expectation of that. But because they haven't done this one thing, I no longer love them. I no longer want to be with them. This relationship will no longer work. And then when you walked away from it, you realize, oh God, all of the other things that they were doing, I cannot easily and readily find that in the next person. I cannot easily and readily find that in the next person. I know that I have experienced it, and I'm almost certain that most of us, if you have walked away from a relationship, a relationship has fallen apart, you have found that something in that relationship, you were like, oh man, if I could have just let that one thing go, if I could have just let that one thing not be. But like I said, for me, in the relationship I'm in now, I've accepted that she isn't perfect because I'm not perfect, and she's not going to meet my every expectation. We set standards for our relationship, and those standards are, hey, okay, these are what we need to keep this thing together, to keep it solid. From there, we can talk and we can discuss and we can work out all of the other stuff. So with that being said, I pray that you guys take this new year, 2021, and if you really want a great relationship, to go into it knowing one or multiple things. One, that none of us are perfect. All of us are flawed. All of us are flawed in one way or another. We are all flawed. Number two, that to understand the difference between our expectations and standards. Standards are things that should definitely be, you should not waver from them. Another word for standards would be principles. There are certain principles that we should, if that's your principle, because again, we shouldn't all live by the same principle because again, we all don't think or move or act alike. So whatever your principles are, you should definitely move in relationships based on those principles. And if another person can accept those principles and isn't in line with that, it's kind of like that thing, the verse in the Bible where it says being equally yoked. Being equally yoked means that we are pulling in the same direction. We are both equally moving in the same direction. We may not always understand, or we may not always agree on how we should pull. But if we're both moving in the same direction, the fact that we may disagree on how we should get there sometimes may actually be a great thing, because if you think about it, you may have information that I don't know, and I may have information that you don't know, and ultimately together, but if we're both saying we want a house and how we will go about getting that house, we may have different ideas on how to do that, but in us trying to pursue it in both directions, we will likely eventually get there if we both are on the same page and moving in the same direction. But again, it is realizing that we have the ability to, like I said, one, realize that we are not perfect. Two, realize that some things we're not going to agree upon, but there is a way for us to know, like, okay, this person wants what I want, and we will get there. Three, to not walk around with expectations uncommunicated. That's the third one. Don't walk around with expectations uncommunicated. Tell this person, this is what I want. And if you are telling a person, hey, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is how I feel, it kind of goes into love languages. If these are my love languages, this is how these are the things that I need in order to feel loved, in order to feel like this relationship works, in order to stay and feel invested in this. You got to vocalize that, because then when you vocalize that, but first we got to acknowledge them for yourself, and then vocalize them within your relationship, because that is the only way that you're going to be able to make the situation move forward in a positive direction. And whether it is that it needs to end, because this person can't deliver or provide that for you, that's fine. That is fine. Because every relationship ain't meant to work. There's some great people out there in the world, but that doesn't mean that they all supposed to be together. It just means that you're great, and you may be great in and of yourself, but us together, we don't do it. So with that being said, y'all, like I said, I pray that you take the opportunity to really find out what it is that you really want, and then go after that in relationships, in love, in family, in your community, in your professional life, in all ways. Find out first what it is that you love and what you want, and then go for that. And anything that doesn't resemble that, doesn't look like that, that isn't contributing to that, walk away from it. Because that's the reality. We are so quick to, I'm invested and I didn't put this many years and da-da-da-da. Hey, at any moment you can look up and realize I've been going the wrong way. And you can always turn around. And rather than move in the other direction and with resentment, move in the other direction with hope, with joy, and most importantly, with love. With that being said, y'all, it has been a pleasure. Like I said, always, if you have a topic or a comment, drop it in wherever you listen to this, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever. Drop it in there, Podbean. Drop it in the comments. Leave a review, whatever. Wait, if you have a idea for an episode, or if you would like to be a guest on the show, by all means, hit me up on IG or Instagram at Black Velvet HD, or Facebook. You can also hit me up, same thing, Black Velvet HD. Matter of fact, even Twitter, Black Velvet HD. Hit me up, let me know. We could talk about it. This is what this is all about. It's all about love. It's all about relationship. It's all about communication and just figuring it out. With that, as always, with love, I pray that y'all have a great one, and we'll talk soon.